Hello, everybody. You've tuned in to EWB's September session of our Beyond Borders Impact Series. My name is Leanna San Pedro, and I'm with the team from EWB's Toronto National Office. Before we get started today, there are a few quick housekeeping items for everyone in attendance. First, today's session is scheduled for 60 minutes. If you need to log off beforehand, don't worry, the session is being recorded, and we'll share it with everyone after the webinar. Secondly, in the spirit of the Beyond Borders series, we want and absolutely welcome your participation in this conversation. So even though all attendees are muted, please feel free to send us your comments and questions by using this Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Several of my colleagues are on hand to answer your questions directly, and our panelists will also be answering as many of your questions as possible at the end of the webinar. Lastly, I do need to highlight our webinar code of conduct. This Beyond Borders series of live engagements has been designed to facilitate open and thoughtful public conversation. Any form of harassment, abuse, or similar behaviors discourages other attendees from openly expressing themselves, and ultimately, this devalues our conversation as a whole. So while we welcome those who might have opposing viewpoints, abusive and aggressive tactics and language will simply not be tolerated. Unfortunately, those who violate our code of conduct will be asked to excuse themselves from the session. Finally, I'm happy to introduce Kim Lawson, your host for today's session.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for coming. This will be a very special Beyond Borders Impact Series, as we will be talking all things run to end poverty and kind of our programs that support these goals and missions of Engineers Without Borders Canada. So as Leanna said, my name's Kim. I am a development associate at Engineers Without Borders Canada. I have been working here for just under a year, and I'm really excited to share with you what we've been putting together and working on as a team as we all move forward collectively towards a world without poverty. So today we have with us some special guests. First, why don't we get an introduction from you, Matt?
Hey, my name is Matthew Tennant. I'm in my 4th year university at Carleton University. I started with EWB my first year doing youth engagement, and since then I've joined the community distributive team, a brand new team this year, and I'm working more specifically with fundraising.
Awesome, that's great. Thanks for coming. And Dolly, why don't you introduce yourself next?
Hey everyone, my name is Dolly. I'm also in my last year of university. I started out the Ottawa team when it got started back up again a year ago, and I was the VP Policy and Advocacy there. And this year I'm doing the Community DT with Matt, but I'm in the Reconciliation portfolio.
Awesome, thanks. And for those of you who don't know, the Community Distributive Team is a select group of kind of chapter members from across Canada who work together with National Office to help facilitate some of those programs and provide some leadership within the community at EWB. So just so you know, we will be referring to the DT, and that's what we're talking about. Awesome, and we have Herbert coming. I think he might just be having some technical difficulties, but Herbert is our program manager, and he works in the fellowships team. And so when he comes back, we'll get him to introduce himself. So first, let's start by talking about kind of our overarching theme for the Run to End Poverty, which, as you probably guessed, is poverty. So as we know, COVID-19 has really changed the dynamic of the world that we're living in. Nobody really knows what day to expect, when anything is going to happen. But what we do know is that it has severely affected millions of people, both in social and economic ways. The United Nations actually reported that poverty levels have increased for the first time in 30 years. And so really all this has done for us is increase our resolve to create actionable items for us as a community to leverage and participate in, so that we can add our voice to these causes and help strengthen not only our community's resolve, but our government's actions towards alleviating poverty. So back in 2015, more than 10% of the world's population, which is about 700 million people, lived in extreme poverty and struggled to fulfill basic needs like healthcare, access to water and sanitation, and education, just to name a few. So I'm going to put a poll up, so a screen will come up on your Zoom here. And the question will be, what does extreme poverty mean? So I've launched a poll, and you'll see that we have extreme poverty is A, people living on less than $1.90 a day, B, people living on less than $4.50 a day, or C, people living without access to enough food to last a day. So select the answer that you think is extreme poverty. And then once we get a few of those votes in, we will kind of let you know what one is the right answer. Perfect. Okay. I'm going to give like 5 seconds. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. And I'm going to share the results. All right. So as you can see, we have a wide range of selections. The correct answer and the actual definition of extreme poverty is people living on less than $1.90 a day, which, if you think about it, you can't even really get chocolate bars or other things like that for $1.90. So it just kind of puts things into perspective here. So to help to let you know, there's about 370 million people in North America. And so like I said, there's 700 million people living in extreme poverty, which is basically double the North American population, just to kind of put it in context. That's a lot of people. So why don't we talk a little bit about EWB's aims at addressing some of these issues of poverty. So Herbert, why don't you, one, introduce yourself, and then two, let us know what your work with EWB does to support strategies to alleviate poverty.
Yes, sorry everyone, I had internet issues. My name is Herbert Kisara. I am a program manager with EWB Canada, based in Kampala, Uganda, and my work basically deals on the fellowship side of EWB programming. Just to jump into sort of like your question you have asked, I think one for me, my take out of that is I feel like there's still a lot that needs to be done, especially when you're looking at tackling poverty, because 700 million is a huge number. Like you have just talked about 370 million, that's the double of almost the whole population of North American sort of like continent. So one, that's one thing that what comes to mind. I think the second thing is also we need to acknowledge the urgency that also this brings forth, because these numbers are just numbers, but again, when you translate it to people's lives, think about 700 million people who don't have access to probably education, don't have access to sort of like healthcare. I think that to me, it's more or less alarming. Looking at my work with EWB, as I said, I work on the fellowship side of the programming of EWB sort of like activities. And for us, I think how we do address this issue of poverty is more or less in terms of bringing people together, because we feel like when we bring people together, it sort of like help us to, one, be able to identify what are these root causes of poverty, and also looking at various approaches in terms of how we can be able to sort of like tackle them. Again, looking at EWB, when we bring young Canadians together to push the Canadian government, for example, to increase its international development assistance, that's one way that we are tackling poverty through EWB way. Another way is when we mobilize young Africans who are creating change within their communities and giving them that exposure to be able to learn and to bring back sort of like that impact and also to become leaders within their community. So those are some of the ways that I might say that EWB addresses the root causes of poverty.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. I think that you hit on a really key point, that knowledge sharing is so important and something that I think the fellowship program really highlights and it is beneficial for. Dolly, as a member of the community DT, again, distributive team, what do you think that as a member of a chapter, as well as this distributive team, that you find your programming is helping to address some of these concerns?
I think definitely the biggest thing is just how much poverty there is and how many people, and the fact that our entire aim is to alleviate that in some way, especially for me, at least in the capital region. I know there was a lot of push for us to go to Parliament and to ensure that there was an increase in official development aid. And that was done, you know, in part by the fundraising that we do, because that fuels the people that get paid for, you know, to work for Engineers Without Borders to lobby government essentially to make sure that we do that, because nobody else is going to. So it's really important. And we did increase it by a lot. Like, I don't have the number exactly, but I remember that there was an increase from, like, directly from our efforts. And that translates into more money being funneled into actually helping alleviate poverty and get more people out of that $1.90 margin. So I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, definitely. And it's great to hear that you guys, I think you're referencing the Day of Action, which is our advocacies team, where they go to Parliament Hill and they speak to our MPs and they have these meetings with all of the chapter members and community members who are engaged. And I think it's a really great event. And like you said, it can really create some positive impact. So Matt, why don't you're also in the capital region, correct? So why don't you elaborate more on what you guys are up to over at Carleton?
Yeah, I think a big part of what we do as university students and as chapter members is just raising awareness. You know, it's easy to say like 1% of the world's population is living in poverty, but we're very detached from that living in Canada, so we're very lucky, but also it's really easy to forget about what's happening abroad. And so the big part of what we do is raising awareness and kind of sharing what we know, as well as just giving concrete ways that we can actually help, whether it's like the Run to End Poverty or going to Parliament Hill. There are concrete ways that you can help these people, even though you may not think about it. And so as a chapter member, it's just really important to kind of share that awareness and share how we can, you know, help with these issues.
Yeah, definitely. And from my perspective, so I work on the partnerships team. And so our role here is to help facilitate engaging partnerships with different actors, whether it be, you know, companies or like individuals, to help them achieve their goals and helping to alleviate poverty. And I think the Run to End Poverty is a really great example of that, because it's one day where you can, well, it's not one day, it's lots of days, but it's culminating in one day where we all take collective action to show that, you know, we are in it for the long run, and we would like to see sustainable change happen. You can talk to your friends and family. That's kind of what the goal and aim is just to open up that discourse, to have those conversations and talk about these issues that, like you said, Matt, sometimes get pushed sideways because, you know, it's not in our day-to-day life necessarily. So I think that having these events and having these advocacy actions and all of these all kind of facilitate one giant movement towards, you know, creating those changes. So I think that's really awesome. And it's really great to be a part of and to, you know, connect with this community in a new and engaging way for me. So, you know, speaking of poverty, the COVID-19 pandemic has, you know, caused a lot of concerns, which has impacted a lot of people's lives. And so there seems to be an income loss of about $220 billion in developing countries. So again, I'm gonna put a poll up. It'll just pop up on the screen. Just get it set up here. And the question is, how many people have been pushed into extreme poverty in 2020? So I think this is a really interesting question to ask because, I mean, it's been 1 year, but it's been very difficult. So we have A, approximately 15 to 25 million people, B, approximately 35 million people, C, more than 71 million people, and D, less than 10 million people, as most get social protection. So I'll give you guys some time. So this is for 2020. And I think that it's a very interesting way to highlight the amount of people. So I'll give you guys like 5 more seconds to answer the poll. Oh, perfect. We've got some more questions coming in. All right, perfect. So I'll end the poll and I will share the results. So it looks like we had most people selecting 35 million. It's actually 71 million people who have been pushed into poverty in 2020, which, to give you context, there are 35 million people who live in Canada. So again, that's about double the population in Canada. And that's just being pushed this year. That goes on top of all of the other people who we already talked about, the 700 million people. So that's an insane statistic, I think. And I don't know, what are your takes on it, maybe Herbert? What do you think of that statistic?
To be honest, I'm really shocked because 71 million, again, these are just numbers, but if you translate it into people's lives and hopes and aspiration, that also sort of like talks in a very different angle about that. Yeah, so yeah, 71 million is a huge number. I'm really shocked.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just 2020, as in, we're not talking of 10 years ago.
No,
yeah.
For sure. I know, I found it to be quite shocking as well.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I mean, it's disheartening because like the UN stat said, this is the first time in 30 years that poverty has increased. And while we weren't necessarily on target for the Sustainable Development Goals, at least there was progress being made. And it seems that now more than ever, these calls to action are so important to help kind of remove this backtracking. So, you know, as my role in the team and running the front-end poverty, it's really important that we all participate and take action. And so I guess my question to you guys is, you know, as an EWB member or program manager, you know, what does having, you know, funds available for your programs like mean to you? So why don't we start with you, Matt? What does having funds available to run your programming as a chapter member and community DT mean to you?
Yeah, back when I was running youth engagement projects, it meant a lot because, you know, connecting with like younger generation high school students is really important to start them actually thinking about having that global mindset. And so having the extra budgeting is really useful when you're trying to run events because you can actually afford to run them properly and run them well. And so luckily I was able to get enough funding, but a lot of smaller chapters or chapters that are starting up, sometimes they have trouble finding that funding and they can't run events to like the size that they'd like or to the quality that they'd like. And so getting the extra funding really means that you can actually get that voice out there and actually speak more and reach a larger audience, which is really important for what we're doing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really awesome that a lot of our chapters do reach out to high schools and speak to people interested in what EWB is doing. And I think, you know, having the resources to even just get there is so important. Herbert, what about you? Sorry, tongue-tied there. How does having the funding help your programming?
Yeah, for us, to be honest, like the funding means a lot to our programming because if I'm to translate it into action, it's more or less like that funding is able to help us be able to attract more talent so that we can be able to deploy those talents to many of our partners and communities in Canada and across sub-Saharan Africa to be able to sort of like bridge that talent gap they're looking at. Again, the funding in a way also help us to be able to expand our geographical coverage in terms of reaching out to the intended beneficiaries. This could be like our Kumvana fellows, being able to reach so many of them and be able to amplify the kind of work they're doing, or be able to reach out to many of our partners in various sort of like parts of the African countries that you're working with. Funding also in a way sort of like help us on the Canadian part to be able to attract young Canadians also to be able to engage in various activities that we do engage them. So in a nutshell, like funding really plays a very big role to our programming and to the impact that we're trying to sort of like do.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's great to hear. I'm glad that it's having such an impact. And it's wonderful that we're able to support so many engaged and young leaders from across different walks of life and in different countries. And it really helps. And it goes back to that whole knowledge sharing that you spoke about earlier, Herbert, and making sure that those channels are available and open so that we can all learn from each other and, you know, find sustainable solutions. Dolly, what about yourself? Do you have any kind of interesting stories to tell us about what you've been able to accomplish?
Sure. I mean, especially as a new chapter, having national office actually help you with funding, because we really had none at the beginning. So it's so imperative for establishing a longevity in programs in each university. And the University of Ottawa, like definitely we couldn't have done anything at all had we not had any funding from the national office because we weren't established. And that gives us the the support we need to make sure that what we start doing, how we start engaging with our university and everybody, like, and all the university students, that they can become aware of this. And it's just not going to be a, this we did for a semester kind of thing. This is going to be something that is going to be taken and handed off from different university students, so that it can be a longer term thing, so that more people are involved, and the more people that get involved, hopefully the more funding that we can have to actually enact the systemic change that Engineers Without Borders is committed to.
Definitely. That's great. And so, you know, fundraising is an important part, but I think that our key message with all of our fundraising events is the work that we're doing. And I think that the Run to End Poverty is like a really important part of this, because it gives you a collective day of action to do these items where you talk about it, you raise funds to support the programs, but ultimately people are more aware of what EWB is doing and how we're trying to, you know, impact these root causes of poverty. So I'm going to put the final poll up, and don't worry, this is not a skill testing question. So you just need to answer. I just want to know how many of you are familiar with the Run to End Poverty. So are you participating? Are you experienced? Let us know. So we've got, yeah, are you participating in this year's Run to End Poverty? You're either a rookie, that's me, I'm a rookie this year. We've got experienced veteran, a marathon runner, and we have someone who may not know what we're talking about, but don't worry, we'll get into it. So I'll just give you guys a little bit more time, about 5 more seconds here. Perfect. Okay. Oh, we have a couple more votes coming in here. All right, perfect. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results here. Okay, welcome rookies. Thank you. That's me too. So we're on this together. We have someone who is experienced and has run it before. Oh, we have a marathon runner. That's awesome. I would have liked to see a Netflix marathoner on here, because I would have clicked that myself. And then we have a few people who don't know what we're talking about. So for those of you who don't know, the Run to End Poverty is a collective day of action to raise awareness for global poverty issues like the ones we're just talking about, and to support EWB Canada's programs to eliminate the root causes of poverty. So the Run to End Poverty leverages the EWB network and the Communities Network to take action by mobilizing people to donate and to advocate. Actually the first ever Run to End Poverty was held in Ghana, and it was a collective team effort by our staff there, and it was a great first event, and it had taken over national kind of office for a while, and was a very predominant event for EWB, and we are bringing it back to kind of relive those glories and engage with our community in a new and fun way. So this year the run will be a virtual run, and just so you know, you don't actually have to run. There is no like mile requirement. You could yoga skip, you could literally Netflix marathon if that's what you wanted to do. It's just a way for us to engage with you. It is on October 17th, which is the United Nations International Day for the Eradication of Poverty. And it's all done online. So it's really easy to kind of share with your friends, post on social media. We have filters, we've got hashtags, which include the long run. So that's kind of the key, or R2EP. And it's really born out of EWB's values. So this event encapsulates those core values and helps to drive us towards our mission and vision. And so it's just a really great way to participate with your community, get a little bit active, do some fun online fundraisers, and kind of just engage with the work that we're doing in the same way that you would on Hill Day, or if you're signing petitions. It's just a new way to do it. And we're really excited about it. And so I'm gonna ask you guys, how are you motivating yourself or maybe your team members to participate in the run? Why don't we start with you, Dolly?
Yeah, so I'm definitely just telling my friends about the more social aspect of it, because I find that when you want to do it and you want to hang out with your friends, even if it's virtually, you get more into it. And then also just highlighting, especially like I'm just really passionate about how Engineers Without Borders actually works, and how like what our money actually goes to and how it's structured in more of an investing way as opposed to just like giving money. I love that. And I think, and most of my friends do, so I really like to highlight that and to say that this is going to an amazing cause. And those are usually the things that help. And I mean, at least for me, posting it on Facebook does help because nowadays that's the easiest way for people to donate, especially virtually. So you just put link your Classy account, and I think that's the easiest way for people to find you. I guess email people if they're a little older, and that's also helped.
Perfect, definitely. Matt, how are you motivating yourself?
Yeah, so my team's actually my family. I convinced them to join with us. So my parents are back home, but I'm in Ottawa. So it's kind of nice to help bridge that gap. You know, I won't be able to see them for a couple months, but just be able like to fundraise and kind of make some jokes about how we're doing with each other in terms of training, because my dad's been going at it for quite a while. So that's more motivation for me. It's just, you know, trying to beat my dad and also sharing the message and seeing how many people we can get to participate, seeing how broad we can make this run.
Definitely. And Herbert, are you getting ready for the run?
Yes, definitely. I think what I love about this time around is the fact that it's virtual. You literally can do this irrespective of your geographical location. So I think this time around, I also want to take advantage of that.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really cool part about this. Like you said, the virtual run is you can do it anywhere, any duration, any kind of activity. You can bike, you can walk, you can hike. And it's just a really great way to get involved. I know for me, I've started walking. I walk an hour every day. I'm training so that I can do like a big walk or a hike on the day of. And that's how I'm going to participate. And I'm making my family come with me as well. So they're all getting active with me. And it's actually turned into a really awesome time to we spend an hour walking together every day, more or less. And it's a great way to connect with my family. And you know, usually you're busy on your phone, you're busy doing all these other things. And so it's just kind of like, we know it's an hour every day that we're going to get together. We talk about our days and what's going on. And it's just like a really awesome way to engage with them that I'm really happy to be a part of. And I know that we're raising money for a really good cause. And I think that that's like a key part of it. And so it's really wonderful to do that. And so for those of you who are interested in participating, we will put the link in the chat box. We are using Classy, which is just a great peer-to-peer fundraising platform. So I encourage you to join a team or register as a team. And then you can, like Dolly said, send your link out to your friends, put it on your social media. Make sure you tell everybody that you're participating in the Run to End Poverty. And it's just a really great way to kind of engage and be a part of it. And it's really easy and simple to do. So that's a really great first step. Matt, why don't you walk us through some more of those logistics that we've got? Like, why don't we tell everybody kind of what's going on? We talked about Classy, but what other kind of items do we have in store for them?
Yeah, so like Kim said, the run is taking place on October 17th at 10 a.m., but the fundraising has started already. So you can do all your fundraising, you make your team and sign up on the Classy website. I think it was posted into the chat. So if you follow that link, you can go and actually sign up as a team member or as an individual, and you can start fundraising that way. So originally when you sign up, there's gonna be a $20 fee that's gonna cover all the administrative charges. That's just to make sure that all your money goes straight towards actually fundraising or funding our projects. But we have a couple initiatives just trying to encourage people to actually participate more. So the first one is the individual prizes that you can win. So as you're fundraising, there's different tiers that you can reach in your fundraising. So the first tier is at $150. If you reach $150, then you get a Run to End Poverty t-shirt, which I think are currently being printed. So you should see some designs of those soon. If you reach $300, you'll get a Run to End Poverty hat. If you reach $500, you get entered into a raffle where you can actually win an iPad. And if you raise $1,000, you actually get to choose where 30% of that $1,000 goes. So you can choose a specific chapter or a specific project that you like. And so you really get to choose where that money goes for that 30%.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Matt. So we've kind of put these all together in an effort to do a great kind of initiative or motivation. And then, you know what, you have your collective t-shirt so you can wear it around and people will know that you took part in the run, or you can talk about it. It's a great talking piece, I find. So what we can do is we can just show you quickly classy.org, just in case some of you aren't familiar with it. Let me just pull up the page and I can share the website. All right, let's see if I can share. Okay. All right, so this is a Classy site. And again, the link is in the chat box. So what you need to do here, you see register, and then you've got about the campaign. You can see we're on our way. We've got our first milestone, which is $10,000. Once we hit that, we'll be adding to our second milestone at 20. So that's a really awesome way to keep track of how we're doing. Like we said, you can do it anywhere. So let's just set up a quick register. So as you'll see, it says as an individual, join a team, or create a team. So it just depends. If you're joining a team, you can click here and it will search. You can search the team. So you can pick any of the teams kind of that are here. If you want to create a team, it'll just take you to the registration page. Just follow all the steps. So come up with a team name. I do encourage punny team names. As you might have seen, we have Cirque du Soleil legs already, which is a kind of fun one. So punny team names are always encouraged. And it's a great way to set up a place for your friends and family to kind of get together and fundraise together. You can comment on people's pages, so you can always congratulate someone on a great donation, or if they've updated their story or whatnot. That's a really awesome place to go and to do that. So yeah, so I really encourage you to go to the Run to End Poverty page and sign up. It's a great way to just kind of talk to your friends and family about it. And so I am just going to ask for some closing thoughts from all of our panelists about the run, anything we've talked about, any kind of thoughts or ideas that you might have. I'll start with, why don't we start with you, Matt?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I know that when I joined the Carleton University chapter, there's a big sign in the back of our office that just says the Run to End Poverty. And for the longest time, I didn't know what the run actually was. And so for it to restart, I'm very excited to take part in it. I was a runner in high school, so it's kind of what I love doing. And I think it's a really good initiative too, to try and encourage more funding towards our programs, especially right now, given the COVID pandemic. And so I'm really excited to take part, and I can't wait to see how much we actually raise and how many people take part in it too.
Yeah, for sure. Dolly, I know she's gone off camera. I think she has to run to class. So why don't we just get your closing remarks, and then we can say goodbye. Oh, she might have already left. That's okay. All right. Herbert, what about you?
Yeah, I think for me, what I'm excited about, especially for those who are new, the Rockies who are doing this for the first time, this is also like an historical thing within EWB. So again, make it fun, enjoy, bring your friends, as in bring a conversation around it. Yeah, and just have fun.
For sure, definitely. I think I'm most excited for that too. This is like totally new for me, and it's been a really great experience, and I've really enjoyed it. So why don't we just answer some questions that we've had come up? Okay, so the first question we have here is, how do I know if there's a team in my area? So that's a really great question. I would say that I would reach out to your local chapter. So maybe there's a university in your town or professional chapter. Sometimes they've already set up a team, and they'd probably be more than happy to have you join. And if they're not having a team, then I would recommend that you set one up, because there might not be one in your local area, and you can be the team captain and then encourage other people in your community to be a part of it and to come and join you. So you can always reach out to us as well at info@ewb.ca, and we can take a look as well. That's a great way and a great resource for those as well. Let's see. So thank you so much for your question. Okay, so we have one question that says, how will EWB be allocating raised funds for the Run to End Poverty? So right now, for the Rent to End Poverty, we will be allocating those funds to the programs in most need. And so if you're asking what is a program in most need, it's kind of where we take an assessment of all the programs that we do at EWB, and we look at the longevity of each of those programs and the kind of funding sources that we have. And so with a fundraiser like this going to programs in most need, we are able to allocate those funds to the program that maybe would require it the most at the time that the fundraiser ends. So it's just a really great way to allocate funds to different programs within EWB that need support. And it's just a really awesome opportunity to be a part of that. Perfect. We have one more question. Where can we find information on these programs? Definitely. So I would encourage you to go to EWB.ca. That's where we have all of our programs described. So we've got different sections where it says invest in people, invest in ventures, and invest in ideas. And that's kind of, it gives a good overview of all of the programmatic work that EWB does. So that is EWB.ca. That's a great place to find those resources. Oh, I'll answer that live. Done. Perfect. Excellent. Okay, well, if you have any more questions or your question didn't get answered today, please feel free to send your questions to info@ewb.ca, which is in the chat box. We'd be super happy to answer them and give you any support or guidance that you need while you set up your Rent to End Poverty page or you start fundraising for it. We will have a campaign guide that's got lots of tips and tricks in it for you to use to help you with your online fundraiser. So I would very much like to thank our panelists, Matt, Herbert, and Dolly, for coming out today and talking to us about the Rent to End Poverty, as well as their engagement with Engineers Without Borders Canada. So thank you so much for coming. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. So I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. I really encourage you to sign up for the Rent to End Poverty on Classy, advocate for your network, fundraise to help create change, and let's show everybody that we are in it for the long run. So thanks, guys. Have a great day.
I think there's a question.
Oh, there's one more question?
Yes.
Oh, I missed it. Okay. Will this be an annual event? Yes. Yes, it will be an annual event. This is kind of like a rollout for the very first one for 2020. And then next year, we're hoping that it gets bigger and better. And every year that we increase and grow and have fun together, that's the goal. Hopefully, you know, with every year that we do it, we are one step closer to achieving our mission. And so, yeah, we're looking forward to running it every year. So you can join every year with new teams or the same team. So definitely keep an eye out. It'll happen in the fall, probably each year. So perfect. Oh, that's awesome. We have someone, you must be our veteran then. She used to run it. So thanks for coming out again. It's great to see you here. It's always good to have, you know, people who are experienced as well as new people to kind of create that discussion and innovation in the event. I'm so glad that you're here. Perfect. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all again so much. And if there's no more questions that I missed, then I will say have a great day, everybody. And thank you again for coming to the Rent to End Poverty Beyond Borders Impact Series with Engineers Without Borders Canada.